All right, parawing day two. I felt like my first day was a pretty good success. I was getting flights, getting pack downs, all that good stuff, and I did get pretty beat up. It wasn't easy, but I felt like I made really good progression for my first day. So my second day, I headed out to the Maryhill Rufus zone for a really great looking forecast as far as winging goes, and I figured that I would probably get to try the parawing a little bit. Now, the first day parawinging really beat my body up quite a bit. The physicality of holding on to that parawing and getting jerked in every which direction, uh, it depleted me. I felt super depleted after my first day. So then to go the very next day, you have the negative of you're tired, your body's beat up, but you have the positive of everything is still fresh and your body is trying to create these new systems, and you know that you're going to progress faster if you keep going day after day, as long as you're not totally wrecked. But I have always found that if the more days in a row you can go for any activity that you're doing, the faster your progression tends to be. So today I went out and started off with a winging session at the Rufus Maryhill zone, and that is a place that is known for having really good swell riding, and today was no different. The winds were probably averaging around 30 knots, and the flow, this is something that ended up catching me. The river flow, the dam release, was at about 215,000 cubic feet per second, which is a lot of water movement. And again, when I'm winging, I don't think about that very much. I know it's there and I have to make a foil change to keep up with the speed, but parawinging is different when you're learning and you're a beginner like I am. So that's going to catch me. But let's look at how the day kind of unfolded. So when I got there, I started my session and I just wanted to go out and have fun. So this is kind of my super easy guarantee. I can get on foil anywhere, anytime, and just ride swell. So that's what I did. I got on foil and would go downwind for several miles, and then I would come back upwind, do my kind of standard session. Then I came in after a bit, I switched, I wanted a faster, higher performance foil, got the 650 out, went out on that, had another blast. But like I said, I was pretty drained, so I started to get cold on this session. So I came back in, tried to warm up, tried to get my head straight, and it took me a little bit longer to get back out on the water here because honestly, I was kind of scared. I The day before had been really, really windy, and it was a bit much for me to really think about, hey, you know, are you going to go back out in extreme conditions with the parawing when you're kind of cold? Uh, so I was a little scared. I'll just be super honest about that. I was a little scared. I wasn't sure if the parawing was just going to get ripped out of my hands and I was going to be totally unmanageable, but tried to calm my sprain down a little bit, and I said, you know what, you learned a lot yesterday. Just focus on depowering. So with the parawing, when you pull, there's a little nub on the ka'a bar, and if you pull that knob towards you, the kite tends to fly up to 12 o'clock, and it will sit directly over your head. So when you're trying to do like a stink bug style start, if you just pull on those leading lines, and at times when it's really windy, I would even just grab the blue leading edge lines and I would hold them, and it would just go to 12, and it would allow me to get to my knees and get up. So I just focused on that when I was getting ready to go back out. And a big change that I want to point out here is that yesterday I was on a 90 liter with a 1050, and it was 5 knots less. So this is only 5 knots more, but I felt as though I wanted to be on my 20-inch wide board instead of the 18, since I had struggled with the balance on it. Again, I'm learning in really rough conditions, really big swell, really strong winds. So I still think the 18 and the 90 liter is probably the better choice if you are learning and you're learning with maybe a 4 meter and you're in smooth, flat water. That's probably the right choice. But in my very first, like, why I'm learning how to parawing video, uh, my goal is to be in the strong winds with this. So that's where I'm learning it. But I was nervous. So it's only a little bit stronger. And now I'm on a -9 liter sinker board and a much smaller foil. This is the 750 Ultra. And I got in the water, and the very first thing I noticed was that the current was really extreme. When I was not on foil, I was having a hard time going downwind. Like, even on my knees with the parawing just in the power position, trying to go straight downwind, the current was going in the opposition so fast that I was getting sucked downriver, um, which is intimidating when you're new and you're not sure that you can get back up. But whenever I do something unique or different, I always think ahead about what are my exit strategies, and this was something that I definitely did today. I thought, okay, if I get swept downstream, I need, a couple hundred yards of beach that I can wash up on. And if I get up and I go downwind, but then I can't get back on foil or I can't get upwind, can I get out downwind? So I had exit points planned. So I covered that, but it was still a little bit intimidating. However, I leaned super hard on depowering the parawing, keeping it at 12. That was extremely valuable. I can't say enough about how valuable that was. And then being on the smaller kit ended up not being as bad as I had feared. My technique is still absolutely horrible for parawing technique, but I relied on my downwind subfoil technique. So today, essentially what I did is I would get to my feet, but I would be pointed straight downwind, just like I would if I was paddling, and I just timed it with the swells. So if you downwind paddle, you know that you get a feel of the swells coming over you, and when the nose of your board rises up and you're falling back into a trough, you know that typically that means you're going to get pushed forward by the next swell. So I would wait until my nose would come up, and if I felt good power in the parawing, then as I flattened out, I would start to pump, and boom, I would go straight up onto foil. So again, that's probably not like actual parawing technique. That's probably some kind of weird parawing downwind paddle technique. But what I found with so much flow is that the parawing, again, doesn't have a lot of power. And when I would turn my board sideways to the current, and then there's, 215,000 cubic feet, 215,000 cubic feet of flow per second pushing on me, I had a really hard time getting the board to turn around and to go in the direction that I wanted to go. I was getting pushed too hard, and I couldn't overpower that with the parawing. You really have to work with the parawing. It's not a tool that you can just fist fight your way onto foil with. So again, it was another successful day. It was not easy. It wasn't like instantaneous joy. But the really cool thing about today is that I went out when I was tired, I went out when I was cold, and I went out when I was scared, which that's not really a great learning scenario. But if you really try to process everything that you're taking in on these, learning experiences, and you think about, okay, how can I depower this? What are my options for the parawing? I actually found that the 25 knots that I was in the day before, I was dramatically out of I had a really hard time getting control of the parawing until the end when I started to figure it out. And then today, when it was more wind, because I now had some tools to manage the parawing and I knew how to manage it better, I actually did a lot better. I wasn't as stressed out I didn't have the parawing getting ripped out of my hands or anything like that, even though it was, significantly more wind, which again gave me a lot of hope. So this is now, you know, my first day. I did that little 30-minute session in, light winds, and then I went and I did over 2 hour session in decent winds. And then today I did another 45 minutes in strong winds. And at the end of the day today, the great thing was that I know if it's 30 knots, I can use a slightly sinker board. I can use a smaller foil that's gonna be able to shred the swell. So this was really, really beneficial to me. And I just want people to remember that when you're learning the parawing, uh, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. If you're learning on a larger parawing, I think your water management is going to be easier, but your sail management and your line management is probably going to be harder. So for me, managing the sail and the lines has not been especially stressful. It's been more about water management and swell management and balance management. So that's where I'm at after 2 days. I feel like the next session that I go out for, I really want to go out and I want to plan to do a short downwind run. I want to have a shuttle set up and a buddy who's going to go with me, and I want to know that I can focus on, like, let's get up, get sustained flights, and see how this works. So that'll be day 3, and I'm just waiting for the conditions. Wish me luck.